The rain had been falling since morning, a soft drizzle that turned the city's streets into mirrors of grey and gold. Officer Daniel Brooks adjusted his patrol cap and sighed, watching the raindrops trace small rivers down the windshield of his cruiser. It had been a long shift, 12 hours of responding to domestic disputes, traffic violations, and noise complaints. But somewhere deep inside, Daniel always felt that the city had one more story waiting for him before he could go home. At 38, Daniel had seen almost everything a cop could see, the violence, the sadness, the loneliness that hides behind broken doors and cracked windows. Yet every time he saw a child, his heart softened. Maybe it was because he and his late wife, Sarah, had tried for years to have one of their own but never could. She'd passed away 3 years ago in a car accident. Since then, Daniel had learned to live with the silence of an empty home. As his radio crackled with static, a dispatch came through. Unit 4-13, report of a disturbance at 27th and Maple Street. Neighbors reporting crying noises, possible neglect situation. Daniel's hand went instantly to the gear shift. Unit 4-13 responding, he said, turning on his siren. The faint wail cut through the rain as he drove through narrow, run-down streets lined with old apartment buildings. Maple Street wasn't a good area. Drugs, broken families, forgotten people, he'd been here more times than he wanted to remember. When he arrived, the building looked half-abandoned, flickering lights, graffiti on the walls, and garbage scattered near the entrance. A woman in her 40s, wearing a faded bathrobe, stood outside clutching a cigarette. She waved him over anxiously. "It's apartment 3B, she said, her voice trembling. "I keep hearing a baby crying, for hours now. Nobody's come out. It's just not right." Daniel nodded and climbed the broken stairs 2 at a time. The crying grew louder, weak, uneven, heartbreaking. He knocked on the door. "Police. Is anyone in there?" No response. Only the sound of that tiny, fragile voice, crying somewhere inside. He knocked again, harder this time. Still nothing. A cold feeling crept up his spine. He stepped back, kicked the door once, hard, it swung open with a crack. The smell hit him first, rot, filth, and something else he couldn't describe. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, landing on piles of trash, empty bottles, and dirty clothes scattered everywhere. And then, in the far corner of the room, on a torn couch, he saw her. A baby. Maybe 6 or 7 months old. Wrapped in a dirty towel, her cheeks sunken, her tiny hands trembling as she reached weakly toward the light. Daniel froze for a moment, then rushed forward. "Oh God," he whispered. "Hey, little one, it's okay. You're safe now." He picked her up carefully. She weighed almost nothing, like lifting air. Her skin was cold, her lips dry. She whimpered softly, too tired to even cry properly. Daniel felt his throat tighten. He pulled off his jacket and wrapped her in it, pressing her close to his chest. "It's okay, sweetheart. I've got you," he murmured. He radioed immediately, "Dispatch, this is Unit 4-13. I have a neglected infant, female, approximately 6 months old. Need paramedics and child services at 27th and Maple, apartment 3B. Condition, severe malnourishment." Within minutes, the wail of an ambulance echoed outside. The medics rushed in, but the baby clung to Daniel, her small fingers gripping the fabric of his uniform as if begging him not to let go. He didn't. He stayed beside her all the way to the hospital. Inside the pediatric emergency room, nurses and doctors worked fast, checking her vitals, giving fluids, cleaning her up. Daniel stood back, watching through the glass, his heart pounding. When one of the nurses came out, she shook her head slightly. "She's lucky you found her when you did," the nurse said. "Another hour or 2, and she might not have made it." "What's her name?" Daniel asked quietly. The nurse sighed. "We don't know. There was no ID, no birth certificate, nothing. The apartment's empty. It looks like whoever was living there just left." Daniel looked through the glass again. The baby had fallen asleep, her tiny chest rising and falling. Something inside him stirred, something he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just pity. It was connection. He stayed at the hospital the entire night, sitting in a plastic chair outside the nursery. The doctors called her Baby Jane for now. Every few hours, Daniel would peek through the window just to see if she was still breathing. Around 3 a.m., a social worker named Linda approached him. "Officer Brooks," she said softly. "You can go home now. We'll handle it from here." But Daniel didn't move. "I can't," he said quietly. "Not yet." Linda smiled faintly. "You've got a good heart, officer. But remember, we'll make sure she's taken care of." He nodded but didn't answer. Deep down, he knew he wasn't done with this child. 2 days later, Daniel returned to the hospital on his day off. The baby was recovering, stronger now, eating small amounts of formula. When he entered the room, the nurse smiled. "She's been fussy all morning," she said. "But look, she seems calm now that you're here." Daniel walked closer. The baby turned her head toward his voice, her eyes wide and brown like polished marbles. She smiled, a tiny, fragile smile that hit him straight in the heart. He couldn't explain it. This wasn't supposed to happen. He was a police officer, his job was to protect, not to get attached. But as he stood there, her little fingers curling around his, he felt something he hadn't felt since his wife died, purpose. He visited every day after that. Sometimes he brought her little toys. Other times, he just sat there talking to her softly about his day, about the rain, the city, the funny people he met on patrol. And every time he spoke, she listened, as if she already knew the sound of his voice meant safety. The nurses began calling him her guardian angel. And in a way, he was. A few weeks passed, and Child Protective Services still hadn't located her parents. The case was complicated, no fingerprints, no family records, no one coming forward to claim her. The social worker told Daniel that the baby would soon be placed in foster care. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. He sat in his living room staring at the empty crib he and Sarah had once bought years ago, unused, untouched. He walked over, ran a hand along the wooden edge, and whispered to the silence, "Maybe this was why I found her." The next morning, he filled out the paperwork to become a foster parent. It wasn't easy, police officers were often denied because of the dangers of their job, but Daniel was determined. He went through interviews, background checks, and home inspections. Every night, he prayed quietly that they'd approve him before someone else took her away. Finally, weeks later, he got the call. "Officer Brooks," Linda's voice said over the phone, "your application's been approved. You can take baby Jane home tomorrow." Daniel didn't answer for a few seconds. He just closed his eyes and let the tears come. He hadn't cried in years. When he arrived at the hospital the next morning, the staff had gathered to say goodbye to the little girl who had captured everyone's hearts. They handed her to him, dressed in a tiny pink onesie, wrapped in a soft blanket. "She's all yours now," the nurse said, smiling. Daniel held her close. "Hey there, little one," he whispered. "You're safe now. No more crying. You've got a home." As he buckled her into the car seat, one he'd installed just the night before, he felt something deep inside him shift. The weight of loneliness, the ache of grief, all of it seemed to fade, replaced by warmth. At home, the baby looked around curiously, her eyes following the dancing light on the walls. Daniel carried her into the small room that had once been meant for his own child. The crib was clean, the sheets soft, the mobile above spinning gently. He sat her down carefully. "Welcome home, Hope," he said softly. "That's your name now. Hope Brooks." She cooed in response, as if she understood. From that day, Daniel's life changed completely. The house that once echoed with silence was now filled with laughter, the soft rustle of baby clothes, and the sound of lullabies late at night. Every morning before work, he'd make her a bottle, hum a song his wife used to love, and kiss her forehead before handing her to the babysitter. And every evening, no matter how tired or bruised he was from duty, he'd rush home to see her smile. It was the kind of joy he thought he'd lost forever. People in the department noticed the change. The man who used to keep to himself now carried baby pictures in his wallet, told funny stories about diaper disasters, and had a light in his eyes again. But one evening, months later, everything changed again. As Daniel sat feeding Hope in her high chair, his phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. "Officer Brooks," a woman's voice said on the other end, trembling. "My name is Rachel. I think the baby you found might be my niece." Daniel's hand froze. His heart began to race. The woman explained that her sister, a young single mother, had disappeared months ago after losing her job and her apartment. The family had been searching ever since, but no one had known she had a baby. When they